Hey everyone, Caleb with Antique Book Collective, and today I'm addressing a question that I have seen asked many times, guys, and that is, should I throw away a book that has foxing? So guys, if you're asking that question, obviously you know what foxing is, so I'm not going to show you guys right now what it is, but guys, I really want to answer this question right up front. Don't throw away a book just because it has foxing. Now, with that said, let's say there's a little asterisk along with that one, because that does not necessarily mean that you should hold on to every single book that's foxed because it's worth a ton. It doesn't mean that you should hold on to every single one because it's cool or this or that. Sometimes, guys, there are some books that should be disposed of because they can actually be a risk to either you or your book collection. There are some books, guys, that are absolutely covered in mold that will have their mold spread onto other books. And guys, a problem with foxing is it can include things that are less likely to spread, such as iron rust or copper oxidation, that sort of things, which does cause some foxing, but there is other foxing, guys, that is caused by mold and mildew, and that mold and mildew can potentially spread. Oftentimes I have found that foxing usually does not spread in the environments that I keep my books in, but that is because I keep my books in the proper environments that you ought to keep your books in. I will link to that at the end of the video, probably down there, because guys, there is a lot of stuff to how to properly store your books. A lot of people are actually hurting their books by the way that they store them. And pro tip, before we get into anything, don't store your old books in boxes. I mean, I know you might want to. I know you might think it's a lot safer, and you definitely can. There's nothing wrong with it. However, boxes are not the most safe thing you can store your books in. Rats can get in. All these sort of like wood beetles and whatnot can get in and eat your books. Those are what people refer to as bookworms a lot of the times. They can get your books inside of a box. And in addition to all that, guys, the books that I normally find that are in boxes usually end up getting shoved into a garage. And once it gets in the garage, it is exposed to the elements in a big way. Your garage floods, your garage gets humid, all these sorts of things. Your garage gets all sorts of hot or all sorts of cold, which actually damages your books. By leaving your books on a shelf, that almost guarantees that they're going to stay inside. And inside your house is usually a much better environment for your books to stay in. I have an entire video, guys, again on that, so be sure to check that video out once this thing's over. But with that said, though, guys, back to the main question: should you throw away these books? Again, the answer is a big fat no. Of course, there are some books that are not going to be worth a whole lot that have some foxing. So this book, for example, guys, is basically worthless, but it has some foxing on it. I hope you guys can see that on this little angle right here. The foxing is a little bit hard to show up on camera, so I'm just going to explain things to you guys a little bit of what I see. The foxing on this book, guys, is a very light brown, and it shows just barely, I'm sure, on camera against the brownish and yellowish pages on this book. This book, guys, is from the 1940s, by the way. So with that said, I'm just going to show you guys right here on the edge of this page right here. You can see there is some foxing on it, and it's not the most defined foxing I've ever come across, but it definitely is foxing, and as such, this book being almost worthless, a lot of you, I could totally understand, would want to throw it away. It's foxed, it's not the most sightly thing, and foxing actually can and does negatively impact the value of quite a few books. However, there are other books that are still quite valuable even with their foxing. So guys, this book, for example, I've shown this in other videos. This book here, guys, is from the 1700s. If you guys want to know the exact date that it's from, 1744, as you guys can see down there at the bottom. It's older than dirt, and as you guys can see on the other side, it has some foxing on it. However, there's no way I'm ever going to throw this book away because of the foxing. In fact, I'm hanging on to it despite all that. In fact, it's actually listed on my website, on my eBay store, and it is for sale, and it's actually for sale for a few $100s. Just because it's foxed does not mean it has no value. Of course, the value can and oftentimes is negatively impacted. It does not mean it's worth nothing, such as this book, again, guys, that is worth a couple of dollars. So that one's basically worth nothing, whereas the other one is worth hundreds of dollars. And this one here, guys, is from a set that, if it's a reprint, it is like $100 worth, potentially $300, depending on how much you want to sell it for. But it's a set of 3 encyclopedias. These are the Encyclopedia Britannica. This one, if it's a reprint, I don't know when it was reprinted, but if this was the first edition one, it's actually from 1771, which is pretty stinking cool. Here's the title page of it if you guys want to check that out. This is a set that I highly recommend you guys look out for if you guys are booksellers, because it can be quite valuable. But with that said, this book, reprint or not, does have foxing on it. Guys, you can see right here, there is some brown marking on the cover. Sorry, not on the cover, on the page that you just saw. And this book actually has foxing like that throughout. And despite that foxing, it still is quite a valuable book. Sorry for the little noise there. It still is quite a valuable book. There's no way I'd throw it away just because of that foxing. Something that I would like to point out, though, with that foxing is not caused by the moisture in the air causing mold and mildew, whereas the other books that I have shown you potentially do have that as an issue, because these books actually did come from a house that had a big moisture issue, and that moisture did definitely negatively impact the value of quite a few books. In fact, there's a lot of books that I did not buy from that sale simply because the moisture damage, be it from actual getting water on it or just the high humidity in the air, actually got it to the point that I was like, I can't sell these. I can't bring them into my house actually either, because if I do, I could get all that extra mold and whatnot in my air, and that moldy air could actually damage my other books. So guys, there is a time and place to be like, this book is too far gone. And I'm an antique bookseller. I love antique books, but despite the pain that it causes me to say, oh, this book is better off in the dump, basically, there is a time to have some books get put in the dump. Or if you guys have all the money in the world and that book is very, very important to you, which totally does happen quite often, you can always hire people to restore these books and bring them back from the brink. Sometimes those people might not take on your project because your book might be so far gone, but there are things that you guys can do to remove or at least try to cut down on the amount of mold in your book. Again, with that said, there are risks associated with that. I do have a video on how I have done that in the past in my channel. You can check out my channel down below, but there definitely are risks to that, and it is not necessarily the safest thing that you can do because there are chemicals involved. Chemicals, as you guys all know, carry with them risks. So with that said and done though, guys, that is what I think you should do if you do have a book that has foxing on it. I don't think you should just throw it away just because it has foxing, because some of these still have quite a lot of value. In addition to that, a lot of these books have personal value to you. They might be a family heirloom. So just because it has foxing does not mean you should throw it away. In fact, a lot of old books that you'll come across will have foxing on them. I actually just bought a set of books, guys, that have almost 250 books in it. It's actually laid out in front of me on a shelf I just threw up for them. But guys, these books, they range from the late 1800s all the way to the mid 1900s. It's an entire set of all the Supreme Court rulings in Oregon, which is pretty stinking cool. That's a lot of history all in there. But guys, despite all the age of those books, they don't have foxing. So just because you have an old book does not mean it's foxed, but just because your old book is foxed does not mean you should throw it away. So I hope that sort of helps. I hope it doesn't confuse you guys too much. I have a whole playlist on foxing in books, so be sure to check it out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.